Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another book review. What if I told you that one of Korea's most inventive writers started as a monk, got kicked out of for talking too much, and then became a literary icon blending noir, crime, and existential dread? So, yes, today we're talking about KimYoungha, one of the more provocative and boundary pushing voices in Korean literature. And Kim exploded onto the Korean literary scene in 1996 with the publication of his debut novel, the provocatively titled I Have the Right to Destroy Myself. He'd had a short story called Paging published the previous year, and that had caught the attention of critics. But it was the ironic and at times nihilistic tone of his debut novel that really put him on the map and announced the arrival of a major new voice in Korean literature. And only 26 years old at the time, Kim had written a novel that dealt with death, sex, suicide, and the role of art in an increasingly consumerist Korean society. And Kim has frequently said in interviews that the mid 90s were a time when suicide and what he terms the meaninglessness of life were becoming trends and talking points in Korea. His debut sought to capture the ennui and alienation of this modern urban life in 1990s Seoul. Since its publication, critics at home and abroad have tended to see Kim's work as embodying the often seismic cultural shifts Korean culture experienced in the 1990s and the 2000s. I Have the Right to Destroy Myself's unnamed narrator wanders the streets of Seoul, helping the lonely, the jaded, and the desperate to commit suicide. He designs the deaths of two women over the course of the novel and celebrates each by taking trips around Europe, where he indulges in sex and art in equal measure. After he helps the women commit suicide, he eulogizes them in short stories that try to make sense of the decision they made to die. One of the women, Judith, is romantically involved with two brothers who have dramatically different ways of surviving modern life in Seoul. The other woman is a performance artist with whom one of the brothers is briefly infatuated. And these interlinking stories reveal the emptiness at the heart of modern life in an ultra consumerist society. I Have the Right to Destroy Myself was praised for its deranged creativity, joyful cynicism, and a general sense of perverse imagination. Your Republic is Calling You, which was his next book translated into English. Again, sorry, this one was published in 2006, translated into English by Chi-Young Kim. And sorry, did I mention the translator for I Have the Right to Destroy Myself was also Chi-Young Kim. Sorry, yeah. And so published in 2006 in Korea and then translated into English and published in 2010. And Your Republic is Calling You kind of reads like a cross between James Joyce and John le Carre, and was inspired by the North Korean propaganda broadcast that Kim heard as a child living next to the DMZ. The central character is a North Korean spy who has been embedded in South Korea for decades. And one day, out of the blue, he receives the order to return home to the North. Now, a stereotypical middle class South Korean salaryman with an indifferent wife and troubled teenage daughter, Ki-young spends a day traveling around Seoul, struggling to decide whether to stay in the south or return to the north. And Kim says the novel reflects the idea that Koreans have an internalized psychological diaspora due to the divided nature of the country, the Korean War, and Japanese colonization. And for English readers, it's a startling evocation of both modern Seoul and Korean identity politics. And Kim tackles a variety of different themes here. So, this is a novel that has a lot going on. First, the identity is a central theme. So, the protagonist, Ki Young, Ki-young, he struggles to reconcile his true self with the identity that he's been living for years. He's been living as the person that he's been pretending to be for so long that he thinks that he has forgotten who he really is. Should he follow his orders and betray his wife and daughter, or not follow his orders and betray his superiors in the north? The novel also explores this ever present tension between North and South Korea, and offers some a kind of a unique perspective on this, the complex relationships between the two. There have, of course, been incidents involving spies between the North and South, and Kim draws on those real life events for this story. Additionally, it also explores the sort of theme of family and the sacrifices that we sometimes make for the sake of a greater cause. And Ki-young's a very well developed character. His internal conflict and personal transformation are genuinely quite captivating. You'll find yourself empathizing with him, or at least I did, and his moral dilemmas. And then, as well as he has these frequently very painful choices that he has to make. But there's also two other main characters. So you have Ki-young's wife and daughter who have their own stories. This provides sort of additional aspects to the narrative, and they also shed light on the impact of Ki-young's secret life on his loved ones. And so, what the novel is really interested in is this comparison between North and South Korea, and analyzing the different types of corruption and dissolution and alienation that these three characters experience, depending on who they owe their allegiance to, who should they be loyal to. And so it's definitely not your typical spy thriller. There's several reviews online where people complain that they were expecting a more traditional spy novel. This isn't that book, so don't pick it up expecting sort of James Bond or um, something like that. It's more of modernist take on the genre, which sets out to subvert those sort of spy thriller expectations. The espionage aspect is really just used as a metaphor for the hidden dualities of the characters. All of the characters in the book are living double or secret lives in some way. And so the novel explores life and change and how these elements can catch us off guard. Ki-young has grown comfortable in his South Korean facade, but he now faces this life-altering decision, and his family doesn't even really know who he is. His wife has become bored with their, dull middle-class existence. She's having an affair with a much younger man, and she's facing her own moral choices. Their daughter Hyunmi has sort of what might seem like more typical teenage struggles, but are obviously important to her. And all of these three stories, they sort of intersect in unusual ways over the course of the day, and they highlight the profound impact of our choices, big and small. So the story is more interested in exploring the nuances of life and the unforeseen consequences of our decisions than it is in depicting shootouts or chases, although those elements are present in ways you might not expect. And let's move on to the final book today. So I Hear Your Voice is a darkly imaginative book. It explores the underbelly of Seoul. We follow two childhood friends, Jae and Dongyu, as they navigate a world of crime, abandonment, and survival in the unforgiving big city. Jae is a charismatic, almost messianic figure who leads a biker gang of disaffected young people who are drawn to his supernatural ability to empathize with suffering, while Dongyu struggles with his own anxieties and a dark background. The novel's filled with gritty realism, action packed storytelling, and deep existential themes. And it offers a very raw depiction of runaways, corruption, and social neglect in the South Korean capital. Influenced by all sorts of different things like Christopher Nolan films, Japanese manga, something like Akira, and revolutionary figures like Che Guevara, Malcolm X. I hear your voice is, just a literary adrenaline rush and a meditation on identity and redemption. So we follow this teenage messiah who rides a 150cc motorcycle through Seoul's, crime-filled underbelly. It's a world of homeless kids and schoolgirl prostitutes, violent cops, runaways, drug addicts, biker gangs. Some readers will find the subject matter here quite difficult to stomach. There's child abuse, there's rape, there's assault, there's murder. All of these things appear in often quite gruesome and unflinching detail. But the novel also reveals Kim at the peak of his powers, displaying quite virtuosic imagination and storytelling here. So the narrative does center on these two disaffected teen delinquents, their childhood best friends, and they're bound together by an almost telepathic connection. And we trace their relationship over 2 decades. The novel begins with an unnamed teenager giving, bloody, painful birth to Che in a bathroom stall at Seoul's Express bus terminal. And just as she's about to suffocate this newborn baby, Mama Pig, who's a cook at a local brothel, rescues him. And Mama Pig raises Che as her own and moves him into an apartment owned by a police detective, where he meets Dongyu. And this sets in motion a long and combustible story of loyalty, violence, and survival. And Dongju too carries his own burdens. He suffers from functional aphonia. This is an anxiety related condition that leaves him mute for his early years. And during this time, he and Che form a preternaturally close bond, with Che seemingly able to interpret Donggyu's thoughts. Their paths split when redevelopment sweeps their neighborhood. Donggyu's father relocates him to a new school and a middle class home, while Che remains behind with Mama Pig, who's now drug addicted and increasingly abusive in this soon to be demolished district of their childhood. And from this rupture, the novel widens into the story of this young, strangely empathetic, messiah who becomes a beacon for the disaffected youth of Seoul, for all those living rough on the streets or scraping by in low wage jobs. And Kim's soul in this novel is just a crucible of recurring abuse and neglect, exploitative adults, social systems that barely function, this cityscape populated by homeless, aimless, law breaking kids just scraping by on the margins. Angst, alienation, and vulnerability define their days. And into this vacuum steps Jay. And at one point, he says, if a being experiences extreme suffering, I feel it too. And his radiating compassion draws other teens to him and into his biker gang. And this, in turn, sort of paints a target on his back for a violent, corrupt cop. And it culminates in a high stakes showdown in Gwanghwamun and Central Seoul. And for all its darkness, this novel is just exhilarating to read. We've Kim's inventiveness and pop culture fluency and just sheer narrative verve just keeps the story going, even as he indicts a society that fails its most vulnerable. So Kim is a stylish, inventive writer whose books deliver a kind of literary adrenaline rush. I Hear Your Voice channels a striking mix of influences, like I said. So Christopher Nolan, manga, Herman Hesse, The Life of Jesus. And it's a sort of a spiritual tale at the end of the day, essentially. And it's really a fantastic novel. I thought it was just ingeniously structured, consistently surprising, and it's a must-read, I think, for fans of Korean literature and anyone curious about modern Seoul. So overall, KimYoungha novels, they sort of give readers a unique window through which to view Korean culture. It's an interesting note, however. In recent years, Kim has stepped back from his reputation as Korea's most transnational or international writer. And he says that living in New York for 2 years made him realize that he is, at heart, a Korean novelist. And he says he's also grown somewhat ambivalent about translations of his work, saying they're like old ex girlfriends who turn up on his door holding a baby. He says it's nice to see them, but he can never be sure the baby is his. But reading these novels, one can understand why Kim is praised for his vast range, the ingenuity of his imagination, and the sheer variety of voices he has breathed into life. And Kim has this magpie like tendency to draw inspiration from anywhere and everywhere. And taken together, his novels and short stories form a mosaic of contemporary Korean society with love, sex, death, shopping, music, career, relationships, friendship, movies, technology, and art, all recurring themes. Anyway, thanks for watching this KimYoungha Roundup, and take care, and I'll see you in the next review.